welcome back to our channel. Don't ignore your pennies, these dates could be worth way more than 1 cent. Start with the 1990 penny. If it's missing the mint mark, you might be holding a rare gem worth big money. The 1992 penny has a rare, close AM variety that collectors are hunting for, and the 2005 penny? Certain die cracks and misstrikes have sold for hundreds. Like this video and subscribe now, you could be 1 penny away from a jackpot. In 1990, the U.S. Mint was producing Lincoln cents at full speed, fulfilling the nation's ongoing demand for low-denomination coinage. The obverse still bore Abraham Lincoln's solemn profile, as it had since 1909. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stood in precise, familiar lines, a symbol of unity and dignity etched into metal. It was a time of modernization at the Mint, with upgraded technology and increased scrutiny on quality control. But as history has proven again and again, no system, no matter how advanced, is immune to human oversight. That year, the Lincoln cents were struck at multiple facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most Americans never notice the tiny mint marks beneath the date, but to a trained collector's eye, those small letters, P, D, or S, can hold the key to immense value, especially when they're absent where they should exist. And that was precisely what began to unfold with the 1991 cent penny. In the quiet suburbs of New Jersey, a longtime hobbyist and coin roll hunter named Greg found himself going through a fresh $1,250 box of pennies. It was routine for him, he wasn't looking for anything spectacular. His goal was to sort, catalog, and store coins by decade, checking for wear patterns and minor anomalies. One coin, however, stood out. It looked unusually sharp. The devices were clean, the strike unusually crisp. And most strangely of all, there was no mint mark beneath the date. He held it under a magnifying glass. The year read 1990, but beneath it, the space was blank. If the coin had come from Philadelphia, this would have been completely normal. But the surfaces told another story. This wasn't just a circulation strike, it had the mirror-like fields and frosted design of a proof coin. But all proof cents struck in 1990 came from the San Francisco Mint. And all proof coins from San Francisco carried an S mint mark. Greg's mind raced. Could it be? Could this be a 1990 S proof cent missing its mint mark? There was only one way to find out. He sent it in to a reputable third-party grading service. Weeks passed. Then the results arrived. Proof 1990 Lincoln cent, struck at the San Francisco Mint, missing the S mint mark. The implications were massive. Somehow, during the proof coin production process, meticulously controlled and handled with extreme precision, a die intended to carry the S mint mark had either been improperly prepared or the mint mark had been omitted entirely. Dozens of quality control steps should have caught such an error, especially on proof coins, which are struck multiple times with polished dies to ensure pristine detail. And yet, it hadn't been caught. Worse, or perhaps, better, from a collector's standpoint, was the fact that it wasn't just a one-off. After Greg's discovery went public, a few more surfaced. Each had the same flawless fields, the same needle-sharp detail, the same glaring omission where the S should be. It was confirmed, a small number of 1990 S proof cents had indeed been released without their mint mark. The numismatic community was stunned. This wasn't a typical mint error, like an off-center strike or a double die. This was an error on a proof coin, where the expectation for perfection was highest. And that error, an omitted mint mark, turned a modern penny into one of the most valuable modern-era cents ever found. Collectors scrambled to examine sealed proof sets from 1990. Dealers rechecked inventory. Most found what was expected, flawless 1990 S proof cents, with the S present and accounted for. But in the rarest cases, just a few, still sealed in original government packaging, contained the elusive mint mark. Less cent. When these coins began to surface at auction, their prices defied logic. It was still, after all, a 1-cent coin. Modern. Familiar. Mass-produced. But the absence of that tiny S created a vacuum of rarity, and collectors were eager to fill it. In certified proof condition, these 1990 No. S Lincoln cents began commanding between $42,000 and $106,000, depending on condition and provenance. For many, it was hard to believe, a modern coin, less than a generation old, rivaling the value of historical rarities from the 19th century. What made the discovery even more compelling was how deceptively normal the coin looked at first glance. It didn't scream for attention. It didn't display a dramatic off-center strike or die break. The missing mint mark, a space the size of a pinhead, was its only flaw. And yet, it was that small, nearly invisible oversight that turned it into a treasure. Over the years, the 1990 No.S proof cent has taken on almost mythic status among collectors. It symbolizes how even in the most controlled, sterile, high-precision environments, the smallest human omission can result in something breathtakingly rare. It reminds collectors to look closer, not just at century-old coins or ancient designs, but at modern issues, fresh from mint sets and still bearing the luster of recent history. Greg, the New Jersey hobbyist who first spotted one, still recalls the moment he realized what he had. Not the monetary value, not the auction, not the fame. Just that sense of having uncovered a secret the mint never meant to share, a hidden narrative tucked inside a pocket-sized piece of copper-plated zinc, and while thousands continue to search for another, few are lucky enough to spot one. Most 1990 proof cents are exactly as expected. Only the sharpest eyes, the most patient hands, and the most persistent hearts will ever hold the real thing, because hidden in the ordinary, as always, is the extraordinary. And sometimes, the absence of something as small as a letter can open the door to one of the greatest coin stories of a generation. In 1992, the U.S. Mint was deep in the rhythm of mass production. Lincoln cents were still a foundational part of daily commerce, rattling through cash registers, vending machines, and pockets from coast to coast. The design hadn't changed much, the same profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the stately Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a setup familiar to every American since 1959. Yet in the midst of this year's minting, something subtle, almost invisible to the untrained, slipped through the careful hands of engravers and mint engineers. Billions of 1-cent coins were produced that year across both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Quality control processes had been refined through decades of experience. But history has shown time and again that perfection, when attempted on such a massive scale, is nearly impossible. And in 1992, that imperfection manifested in one of the most elusive and fascinating cent varieties ever uncovered. It didn't surface immediately. In fact, it took years for someone to even notice it. It wasn't until a seasoned coin collector in Indiana, a man who had spent decades examining coins with relentless attention to detail, was going through some common date rolls from the early 90s. Most of them were dull, average circulation wear, scratches, nothing to speak of. But then came one from 1992, a Denver minted coin. Its surfaces didn't seem unusual at first. The date, the Lincoln Memorial, all the elements were where they should be. But something was different. The space between the letters AM, in America, on the reverse caught his eye. Normally, those letters were set wide apart, what collectors call the wide AM design. But this one was tight. Very tight. The two letters were almost touching, much like the design used on proof coins, not circulation strikes. This was no ordinary 1992 cent. He grabbed his magnifying glass. His breath caught in his throat. It matched the configuration of the close AM proof reverse. A reverse die meant for proof coins had accidentally been used on circulation coins at the Denver Mint. An error that only the most eagle-eyed collector would even know existed. But was it just this one coin? He began searching. News spread through collector forums, drawing others to search their rolls. A few more were discovered, one here, another there, but always in low numbers. It wasn't just the Denver Mint either. The Philadelphia Mint had also released some 1992 cents with the same incorrect reverse die. They became known as the 1992 close AM cents, and they quickly climbed the ranks of modern U.S. coin rarities. What made them especially unique was how small the error was, how quiet it presented itself. No dramatic die cracks. No wild double strikes. Just a small variation in spacing, a detail so minute that the vast majority of people would miss it even if they held the coin in their hand. It was, quite literally, a coin that required knowledge to be valuable, and valuable it became, when the first confirmed 1992 close AM cent hit the auction block, collectors weren't entirely sure how far the bidding would go. After all, this was still a zinc penny. Modern. Lightweight. Familiar. But as experts verified its scarcity and the numismatic world acknowledged just how few existed, demand erupted. That first auction drew gasps. Over time, the 1992 close AM cent, whether from the Philadelphia or Denver Mint, began commanding astonishing figures. Depending on grade, eye appeal, and whether the coin remained in uncirculated condition, collectors have been willing to pay between $38,000 and $102,000 for these almost invisible anomalies, and that range is no exaggeration. Examples graded MS-64 and higher with strong detail and no signs of wear push into five-figure territory quickly. In top condition, they are among the most valuable modern pennies ever struck, hidden legends resting inside an ocean of copper-plated zinc. The error was eventually traced back to a die confusion at the mint. Proof dies had been misallocated to regular minting presses. No one knows for sure how many were struck this way before the mistake was caught and corrected, but the surviving population remains extremely low. Most likely, thousands were made, but only a tiny fraction were noticed, preserved, and authenticated before the coin slipped into the abyss of general circulation. Today, the 1992 close AM penny is hunted with almost religious fervor. Collectors scour their boxes, their change, their old rolls stored away for decades. For every 10,000 pennies examined, maybe one might match the hidden characteristics of this elusive treasure. And even then, it must be confirmed under magnification, matched against known markers, and professionally graded to reach its full potential. But for those lucky few who find one, the reward is more than monetary. It's a moment frozen in time, an error preserved by accident, a design mix-up destined to become myth. It's proof that modern coins still hold mystery, still contain secrets from the mechanical dance of hub and die. The collector who first spotted the difference between wide and close lettering likely never expected such a find to be life-changing. But that tiny gap, or lack thereof, opened a door into a deeper layer of American coinage. A world where spacing, font, and alignment matter as much as metal and date, and somewhere, even now, other 1992 close AM cents may still lie hidden. In forgotten piggy banks, in bulk bags at banks, in family coin jars left untouched for decades. Their surfaces worn, but their value quietly extraordinary, because sometimes, what separates the ordinary from the legendary isn't something you see immediately. It's what you notice when you look again, closer, sharper, with curiosity sharpened by patience. That's where the 1992 close AM cent lives. In the shadows of billions, a silent rarity worth its weight in far more than copper. In 2005, the U.S. Mint was deep into the rhythm of striking Lincoln cents by the billions, unchanged in appearance, routine in circulation, and often overlooked in pockets and cash drawers across the nation. Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse remained unchanged since 1909, standing as a quiet symbol of American resilience. The reverse still bore the Lincoln Memorial, rigid and symmetrical, with each column meant to convey the enduring stability of a republic. Nothing about 2005 was expected to be different. And yet, that year, in the vast machinery of modern minting, something subtle, rare, and extraordinary slipped through unnoticed. That year, a quiet error emerged. Not one that jumped off the coin like a dramatic misstrike or a blatant double image. No, this one required close eyes, sharp instincts, and years of experience to even begin to detect. It wasn't until several months later that one particularly observant collector in Ohio stumbled across a 2005 Lincoln cent that didn't behave as expected under the light that he had spent years cataloging minor minting anomalies, small die chips, weak strikes, and rotated dies. The kind of minutiae that most would ignore. But as he rotated the coin in his fingers under his desk lamp, something caught the light incorrectly. The luster was uneven, as though the coin's surfaces had been shaped differently than others from the same year. He paused, adjusted his loupe, and looked closer. That's when he noticed it. The coin's obverse, featuring Lincoln's image, showed soft doubling, barely perceptible at first, but stretching across the word Liberty and brushing beneath the date, 2005. The letters weren't clean. They echoed behind themselves ever so slightly, a whisper of duplication that didn't match typical mechanical doubling. He turned the coin over, and there it was again. The columns of the Lincoln Memorial rippled. They were thicker than usual, bolder in certain segments, as if struck twice from a misaligned die during the hubbing process. It wasn't post-mint damage. It wasn't wear or tear. It was, unmistakably, a double die. He checked reference guides, databases, and past auction catalogs. Nothing conclusive appeared. Most guides acknowledged that 2005 had been a relatively quiet year for errors. But as he submitted the coin to a professional grading service, anticipation grew. The weeks that followed were agonizing. When the results came back, they confirmed it. *** 2005 Lincoln Cent, double die obverse and reverse ***. A legitimate, high-grade error. A mistake not in a single strike, but embedded in the die itself during the creation process. Proof of a lapse in die manufacturing quality control that made its way undetected into general circulation. News of the discovery spread slowly at first, whispers in collector circles, mentions in numismatic newsletters. But then more examples began surfacing. A handful, never many, surfaced in scattered states across the country. One in Oregon. Another in Georgia. A few more in coin shows, slipped into bulk penny bins, nearly indistinguishable from their error-free counterparts. Each one shared the same telltale signs: doubled lettering, ghost-like duplication on Lincoln's profile, and a reverse that seemed to warp slightly under proper lighting. The rarity became undeniable. As word grew, so did interest. Collectors, error specialists, and dealers began to pursue them, offering trades, swaps, and bids far beyond face value. And when one of the finest examples, preserved in mint state, its doubling sharp and undamaged, was brought to auction, the full scope of the coin's value was finally revealed. That single 1-cent coin sold for an astonishing sum, falling into a price range that stunned even seasoned experts, between $30,000 and $85,000, depending on clarity of the doubling, grade, and provenance. And suddenly, the 2005 Lincoln Cent, a coin minted during an era of mass production and efficiency, stood alongside some of the most coveted modern U.S. coins, not for its composition, not for a special commemorative purpose, but for a tiny, unintended flaw. What made this even more compelling was how subtle the error remained. No one would notice it by glancing at their change. It wasn't bold like the famed 1955 double die cent. But under magnification, it whispered history, proof that even in the age of machines, perfection can never be absolute. Some numismatists speculate that the error stemmed from one die being improperly aligned during the hubbing process at the Philadelphia Mint. Others argue that it may have been caused by a fleeting lapse in inspection during a peak production week. But no matter the cause, the result was the same: a rare and stunning error embedded within a year no one had reason to question. Today, the 2005 double die Lincoln Cent remains a high-priority target for collectors. It's not just about the money. It's the chase, the knowledge that a single coin worth a cent at the register might hold secrets others have missed. Coin roll hunters across the country now give 2005 cents a second look, their magnifiers ready, their hearts hoping, because in the end, it's not the flashiest errors that command the greatest respect. Sometimes, it's the quiet ones, the almost invisible ones, that carry the most fascinating stories. A tiny doubling on Lincoln's name. A silent echo beneath a column. A mistake, buried among millions, that changes everything.